is for God. I had a wonderful salvation experience when I was only 18. Knew no one else in the world who was a Christian, and God touched me. And therefore I know beyond all doubt of the mercy and the grace of God that's governed and controlled me for the whole of my life. So I want to marry or interlock the topic today with the brilliance of Almighty God in creation and sustaining our planet. In Psalm 19, we read these words: "The heavens declare the glory of God. The sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day after day pours out speech, and night after night reveals knowledge." There, that's day and night, voice goes out through all the earth and their words to the end of the world. It does not depend on the language. There's only one language. So the heavens declare, we see the skies proclaim his glory in handiwork and creation. It pours out speech which everyone can understand and hear. It reveals, it unveils, it shows, it demonstrates, it arrests people. And the voice goes out to all, not some. All are without excuse. And so we see it's day and night. It goes forward. So Psalm 19 is, read it sometime if you have a chance, is the creation's voice. And we'll see shortly a little bit more about the creation's voice, day and night, speaks, proclaims, declares and reveals. In fact, it's the gospel also speaks, proclaims, declares and reveals. Interesting, in John, in the New Testament, we read this: "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." You know it well. All things were made through him or by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Powerful. But what can we connect with that? Well, first of all, we know the living word speaks, proclaims, declares and reveals by creation as well as proclamation. And so the Creator's voice goes out through all the world. And we'll see in the next slide how it does. So the living word reaches the worldwide to all humans day and night. Isn't that wonderful? Doesn't mean just so we take a sickie and not get involved, but God is speaking all the time. Now, as we see this, we see the living word, and this is just to bring it into context here. The living word, the Lord Jesus Christ himself, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He has written a word. It's the written word. It's called the Bible. And then he has the proclaimed word, like today and with you in your daily life at work, wherever you may be. The proclaimed word is by Christians. And the fourth one, of course, is the voice of God in creation. So when people say God speaks through the Bible, yes, it's true, but not only through the Bible, because heavens declare the glory of God. And so we begin to see that there's revelation, not just information. You can have it up in the brain, but it's revelation and illumination that leads to inspiration and involvement. Now, just a couple little things. The Bible tells us that the earth is round. In Isaiah 40, it says here, it is he who sits on the circle of the earth, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. That's interesting, isn't it? Some scientific stuff is in the Bible. It sits on the circle. Now, of course, God doesn't sit because he's not a human being, but it's to indicate that the earth is round. The second one is about rotation. It actually tells us in Job that the earth is rolled or rotates as it's rolled like clay to a seal. Now, we don't have it today, but they rolled it along to get the seal mark from the ring. They rolled it. It is rolled as clay to a seal. And so we have in creation then, we begin to see that there's purpose in the planets. For example, if the moon wasn't there, the earth would wobble. We have design. God has designed, purposely Everything is for function and purpose, and it's ordered. And so there's not a haphazard, random event, but God has got purpose. And we see that in code and also in DNA. Now, code means that there's something that's reproducible. You produce a flower here and go to London or so on, or somewhere in Saskatchewan. You'll see that that plant is the same colour, same design, same format, same structure, because it's got code, inbuilt code. And of course, with bodily systems and life and animals and so on, we've got DNA, and that's another thing. We could deal with that later. So things are reproducible. They're not copies, but they're reproducible because they're inbuilt. For example, if you cut your tongue, it doesn't grow toenail. It grows tongue. If you change your fingernails without too much damage, it grows quick or nail. It doesn't grow skin where the nail should be. Now, unless, of course, there's a bit of structural damage. It wipes the... So there's reproducibility, there's shapes, and so we have patterns all the way through nature in the world today. We have patterns, reproducible patterns. And a good example of that is the peacock. Now, it's not only the massive feathers and the colour and the variety, and look at the format there. They're not tripping over each other. There's a radial format there. But if you go down to the very seeds and also the little things, and that's why birds preen themselves. You know why birds preen themselves? Not on the wing itself. The wings come apart. So the bird hooks the little hooks. Now, if the hooks weren't right, they'd fall off again. They've got to be the right diameter, right shape, and they hook them back on and going, it's Velcro. Who invented Velcro? God invented Velcro. And so we have God's glory revealed in structure, purpose, function, and all those things we see on the left there. Now, just to look at this, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, see the swirling nature of the planets. If you go up near the top, you'll see the swirling nature of there's a baby there, but next one along is a plant. And actually it's mathematically difficult, extremely difficult, to develop something like the middle one about that shell. And a shell is already structured and it's under the sea, no one sees it, and you've got these spiral shells. So God has intention and He's made it that way. And we're not just like animals. We are similar to animals, but we're not like animals because God has made us with a living soul. So God reveals and sustains. Not only does He reveal, but He's got to sustain it. Sustain all things, not some, by the word of His power. The word is the Lord Christ, and the Lord is sustaining all things by the word of His power. His meticulous design and His infinite power, and it was intentional because God made it that way. And so Jesus is the living word, and the living word proclaims and shows and reveals and sustains. All right, let's just switch a little bit now to solar energy. Now, solar energy is called electromagnetic radiation. Now, we've got X-rays, we've got Johnny rays. No, that's for the old people. He was a singer. We've got X-rays, we've got rays that come from microwaves, but we've got ultraviolet rays and all sorts of rays. We've got this stuff that comes from the sun. Now, predominantly it's three things, and we'll see this as... So in solar radiation, it takes 8 minutes for the light to get here. We see, first of all, visible light. So what we've got are eyeballs, and these pick up the light, and we can see the screen, we can see the lights around us, but also we can see that light is just not one white colour, it's coloured. Red, green, blue, indigo and violet, right through to violet. And so we, on certain days that the rainbow comes, we can see that. I've got the press one. The second one we can see is infrared. Now that's an electromagnetic radiation. Now, just to put it in its place, you've got red up one end, just outside the red range is the infrared. We can't see it, but, that's the red, orange, but we can feel it. Now, infrared from the sun doesn't hurt you, doesn't cause sunburn, it only makes you feel warm. Now, it's interesting because at the end of all our feelings, we've got eyes that pick up infrared. Did you know that? infrared eyes at the end of our nerves. And when it's too hot, I move away, put my coat on. You've taken 4 jackets off already, haven't you, Pastor? So the sensing of the nerves picks up the warmth factor. I'm pressing the wrong one again, sorry. The third one, the 3 major ones, is ultraviolet, and it's on the other end of violet is ultraviolet. It's good to know that. Now, there's something about ultraviolet. It's the one that excites growth things like skin and other stuff. People wear sunglasses to stop the ultraviolet getting into your eye and damaging the retina and other aspects, very fine structures in the back of the eye. Now, the ultraviolet is extremely dangerous. About 48% coming to Earth is infrared, about 42% is visible light, and there's 11% that's ultraviolet. Fortunately, ultraviolet's got a spectrum like red, orange, yellow. It's got 3, and the top bad ones are up north, 50 kilometres to 100 kilometres up there. It hits a little of oxygen and bursts into ozone. O2 goes to O3, ozone. So ozone is produced by the stimulus, energy stimulus of ultraviolet. Fortunately, it's been gobbled up, it's used up, because if it came through to here, we'd die. Okay? Why? Because God meant it that way. The second lot of ultraviolet also can cause troubles. Now, just in case you're worried, people say we've got an ozone depletion. Well, it's dark in the North Pole 6 months of the year. It's dark in the South Pole. So it needs light. Ultraviolet is not there, so it depletes. So it's cyclical. It goes up and down with time. But fortunately, we've got the ozone up there, which is now like hydrogen peroxide, which oxidizes. So it gobbles up some stuff, but it goes down. And of course, we've had a few chemicals that go in and take up oxygen's place, and so we get a problem. So that's intentional. God made it that way. Now let's look at solar radiation, infrared, electromagnetic radiation. Comes through space, comes to our atmosphere, comes to the planet's surface, it's our surface, solid surface, and it does absolutely nothing. It travels all that way and it does nothing because it's absolute zero and it's zero pressure. Minus 273 is the temperature. Now, if we look again at this solar radiation and our atmosphere, we see that it comes into our atmosphere and it's mainly nitrogen. Nitrogen doesn't react, and argon doesn't react. It's an atom, it's not a molecule, single atom. They wander around all the time, they take up space, but they don't react. And same with oxygen is the next one, the other one. There's basically the top three, 98.5%. Okay, so then radiation does nothing with 98.5% of the atmosphere. Nothing. It doesn't react. It doesn't interplay. It doesn't even touch. It may, but they do collide, so it's indirectly the molecules get happy. So if we warm the room up, we might dance around a bit and bang into each other a bit. And so the molecules get excited. You wouldn't blame them. So 98.5% in our atmosphere. Let's talk about our atmosphere briefly. Keep in context of God's purposes all the way through here. As we've indicated in our atmosphere, at 98.5% of those 3. But we have other gases. Now they're called greenhouse gases. Now in this world there's no greenhouse, no walls and no roof. When we have a lounge room with the windows facing the sun, the energy can go through, but it can't get out very well. So glass lets that wavelength of infrared radiation through, but it comes and it's like a wall, it gets reflected back in. So sunrooms and lounges, rooms with glass, warm up. And so it's important to see that. Now, what we have is water vapour. Now, water vapour is in the air, as you know, it's a gas, and about 1.5%, not quite. In New Zealand, Australia, it's about 1.5%. In the tropics, it's 4%. And it's all natural. You can't do anything about it. You can, but not much. Carbon dioxide is the second one they talk about all the time, and it's only 0.042%, and it's 95% natural. Now, this is the problem with the press, with the governments, with the scientific bodies, with NASA, They don't tell you all this, but it's 95% natural. It comes from rotting leaves and things from reactions on the earth, on the planet, in the oceans, and it's mostly natural. It's only the 5% we're worried about. So that's number one important factor. The next one is methane. Now, methane is very, very small, 0.0018%. Now, it's 50% natural, about 50%. The rest of it comes from bogs and streams and rivers and fields and things like that, and rotting matter and so on. So with water, it's all natural. And it's the only gas that changes phase. That is, the gas goes to water droplets and forms clouds. Nitrogen doesn't do that. Carbon dioxide doesn't condense. So change of phase is a vital. Miss that, and you miss the whole fact, not you personally, but the world is not talking about this. This is number one factor in the world today on climate, weather, and so on. There are other factors, of course, we'll talk about them. So those two factors, important to see that carbon dioxide, don't knock at government because most of it's natural. Don't try to reduce it, government. Stupid, 95% of it's natural. Okay. Now, there are some here today that prefer numbers, so I'll just switch to numbers. Of 1 million molecules, 985,000 of them are nitrogen, oxygen, argon. Water in New Zealand, or in Australasia, is about 15,000. Carbon dioxide is 42. Of that, 95% is natural. So there's only 21 caused by cars and generation plants and so on. And of methane, which only has 2 particles, only one of those is natural. So let's look at the man-made. The man-made, of course, is water, none. Man-made doesn't make water. 21 carbon dioxide, out of that 422, and 1 methane, approximately. So let's add those up. 21 plus 1 is 22. And what they're telling you on the press, the TV, and all the stuff, and even in some technical articles, because there are university people who've got to defend their funding. If they speak this, they don't get their funding. And so it's dishonesty runs galore. So only 22 molecules in 1 million causing all the problems. It's like saying there are 22 people in New Zealand causing all the problems for, say, Auckland's 1.7 million. Okay, we're saying let's add a few more too. So there's 30 people causing problems and 3 kids, because methane's a little kid. It's so small, so little of it, that even if it may be good at what it does, it can't do much because not much of it. So the 2 major greenhouse gases we need just to home in this morning, because they've got purpose, and I want to highlight God's purpose in this today. Water vapour and carbon dioxide, they're the 2. So where does oxygen come from? Now when you burn something, you use up the oxygen. You burn a match, you burn a piece of wood, coal, whatever. It uses up the oxygen. Where does new oxygen come from? Have you thought about that? Does anyone know? Just no one so far, good. I'll tell you, it comes from carbon dioxide. It's interesting, new oxygen comes from the very thing you're trying to kill. Stupide, that's a French word for stupid. So from photosynthesis, we get the oxygen, O2. Just look at O and little 2. It's 2 atoms of oxygen stuck together, and they wander around. It's important for our breathing and living and so on. And if you go up the Mount Everest any time, better bring a bottle of stuff with you because it won't work otherwise. So photosynthesis, and people say, well, that's good. Yes, I know all about photosynthesis. Plants can take carbon dioxide in and spit out oxygen. That's true. Missed the point. Most of the oxygen comes from the sea, because in the sea is plankton. Plankton gobbles up the carbon dioxide, makes shells and mollusks and things, and spits out oxygen. Most of the oxygen comes from the oceans. We'll come to that. Where does orange juice come from? Where does orange juice come from? Where do peaches come from? Where do apple skins come from? Where do the seeds? Where do flowers and colours and all that come from? Sorry, carbon dioxide again. They're trying to reduce it. Got a problem. It goes right through when they do that. So carbon dioxide is God's atmospheric fertiliser. And remember, it's 95% natural. So we have the greening, to prove it, it's the greening of the planet. Look what's happened. extra carbon dioxide over the last few years has caused increase in crop yields. Now, of course, some of it's due to fertiliser, some of it's due to extra watering and more science in growing things, but they say that about 50% is due to carbon dioxide. So here we've got NASA, the big space research centre in America. They talk about greening, and you'll see the green colours there, the greening of the planet because things have grown. And what happens is in the agricultural output worldwide, in 60 years, it's gone up 4 times, and 400% in 60 years. And so just to give you some idea, the greening of the planet in the last 60 years is in sugarcane and in rice and soybean, tomato, wheat, it's all there. And it's obtainable on the web if you're interested. So the greening of the planet is due to extra carbon dioxide in the air. Don't knock it, not you personally. Government's knocking it, even the research centre, even Professor Frame, who heads up the New Zealand scene. I went to the university, I've given it a few talks there, but they will not let me back in. Why? Because I don't speak the same speak. Why not? Because they've got an agenda. And once you have an agenda, if you don't sign up, and I'll tell you what the agenda is in one point, the Paris Agreement. Used to be the Copenhagen Accord, and now they've got the Paris. They've signed, New Zealand government has signed up. And the previous Minister of Climate Change said to me one day, when I pestered him a bit, Geoff, he said, doesn't matter what you say, we've signed the Paris Accord. Get lost, we've signed the Paris Accord. And that's the dishonesty, I'm sorry, but it's good for us to know. So there's nature's carbon dioxide and recycle. So carbon dioxide is valuable. In water, it forms, under pressure, forms Coke, soda stream, fizzy, all that type of stuff. And it's always, always, always acid. Even when it rains. When you start the first bit of rain, it's almost like first bit of rain that drops, dissolves some of the carbon dioxide in the air and it's quite acid. It's not bubbly, you can't drink it, but you could. And it's called carbonic acid for those of you amongst who love that. Like vinegar, vinegar's a weak acid, carbonic acid is a weak acid. Okay, so the second one is carbon dioxide in seawater. Now it's always, always, always alkaline. And in the paper this week, on the press here, around the world, they're saying the oceans are becoming more acidic. How can something that's alkaline become more acidic? It only can become less alkaline. It can't become more acidic if it's not acidic. Are you with me? But go on the site, if you go on the web, you'll find the first pages have got all that there. Acidic, acidic, acidic. And it's wrong, not only wrong, but it gives the wrong message. It's always alkaline because it goes in to shell and form shells and mollusks, oysters, shells, and all sorts of things you see there. So this carbon dioxide, which is 95% natural, 93% of it's in the ocean, but you can't get it out because it's combined to form shells. And I'm not saying you can't get any of it out. Some of it's dissolved and it'll come out when you heat up the ocean or get warm area. Some of it will come out, but most of it's already combined. One-way reaction to shells. You've got to have acid to put them back. There's no acid, it's always alkaline. 5% of all the carbon dioxide is in the air, in the land, and only 2% in the air. And of that 2% of in the air, it's quite small considering 95% of that's natural. Do you see what I'm getting at? And that's intentional because that's God's plan, God's purposes. Okay, let's move on to water. Now we know a lot about water in different lakes and rain and so on. So the question here, the first question is, the radiation from the sun interacts, what would you think would interact first? What would be major? Well, everyone on the press, the news, the Herald would say carbon dioxide gas in the atmosphere, which we've got to get rid of or reduce. Sorry, that's not the one. Carbon dioxide doesn't condense, methane doesn't condense, it's only water that condenses. So what happens, what have I done here? Press the wrong one. It's liquid water. So radiation from the sun hits liquid water. Why? Answer, clouds, 2/3 of the world is clouds at any one time. So the liquid water droplets is what this radiation sees first. Coming in from outer space, what do you see? Clouds. Secondly, what do you go past the clouds, what do you see? Most of it's ocean. More than 2/3 of the world is ocean. So what is there? Liquid water. Now in between, you people say, well, we've got gas, water vapour gas. Yeah, it's true, but it's not all the truth. Because all between the water on the sea and the water on the lakes and the rivers and up there, the clouds, is water droplets. You can't see them. They haven't got together yet. They're engaged and not married. So watch what happens. And so we have this tremendous effects of radiation on water and water vapour. It's major. Major, not minor, not some, major. So water is unique. How is it unique? Means special? Well, it's the only atmospheric gas that changes phase. It goes to a liquid. Secondly, water vapour gas. Secondly, it forms droplets. Now, why does it form droplets? A lot of other liquids don't form droplets. Water's got a special structure. I won't go into that today, but it puts a skin on the droplet and it forms a skin. And if you wax your car and it gets water on it, it forms droplets. If it's a dirty car, it forms a sheet over it. And so droplet dynamics is a big thing. So they come clouds, mists and fogs, water droplets. Then, of course, we get the ice formed. Further up, a few kilometres up, we get ice crystals. And therefore we get snow and hail. So the ocean liquid water evaporates, comes out, it forms gas and vapour. The vapour then condenses to form droplets. The liquid water droplets get together, get married, have a little party. They take a while to aggregate or agglomerate, or aggregate or group together to form bigger and bigger, 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 until they get too big up there and they fall because gravity pulls them down and we get rain. So cloud droplets and clouds change. Some clouds, you've seen them up there, then suddenly they just disappear. They go back to the vapour again. Droplets grow, they amalgamate. They precipitate as rain and they can solidify as well. 3, solid, liquid and gas. And so rain, sleet and snow, of course, and hail happens. So it's still important to highlight this because the more sun comes down, you get more evaporation. The more evaporation, you get more clouds. And what do clouds do? Clouds form an umbrella. Now you walk outside here in the sunshine and come back in and walk outside when there's some clouds there. It's much cooler, isn't it? Because the clouds are God's umbrella. Just dropping it aside just to shock us a bit. Why is there snow? From God's point of view, it's God's dams. You think, oh, okay, we can go around the ski, go and make snowballs and snowmen. Yes, but why? Because way back, man didn't have any dams in the rivers and creeks. So the Lord said, I'll make the snow for you in the autumn and winter, and when the sun comes, it'll turn into water and it'll fill up the rivers and you won't dry. The birds won't die, you won't die. It's a snow job, snow job, isn't it? God has made snow for the very purpose as dams. Just by the way. There's a lot more I won't have time to talk about today. So the umbrella's cool, so it's cooling on a shade day, and more clouds form insulation at night, so the radiation goes up. If it's a cloudy night, hits the clouds, goes straight back down again at the speed of light, goes back up, and it's going back and forward at the speed of light. Clouds, people say, but clouds will warm up, absorb. Huh? If they warm up, absorb, they disappear. Do you see the clouds disappearing? No. But I'm saying in the desert, that's drier air, there's no clouds. So at night, if you go to the Sahara, I haven't been there yet, it's -4 at night. But it's 55, 60 in the day. Because there's nothing to fire the radiation that's absorbed in the ground back again. So we have what we call a dynamic equilibrium. And equilibrium means that give me this and I'll take that. Hit me here and I'll bounce back. It's the equilibrium that sets it all up. So it becomes a self-compensating and self-buffering. So the more you give it water, the more it will respond to take up what is causing the problem. And so it's self-buffering and self-compensating. It's intentional. It's a God factor. God made it that way. And still more, water is unique. And they're all creation factors. Water is the only liquid in the world, doesn't matter what it is, go to the pharmacy, the chemist shop, any liquid. No liquid, when it freezes, floats on itself. Water's the only one. Why? Well, it's very simple. If the ice went down, it would crush all the whales and fish and everything and die. It's the only liquid in the entire, let's say, universe that we know of that floats on itself when it freezes. So ice floats. The second thing that's unique, it's ice crystals and snow can go straight to vapour without getting wet. Years ago, when I lived in Sweden in the 70s, I had some washing out in the line, and someone said to me, we're in a big centre with Karolinska Institute Centre, and they said, you've got to be washing, it'll get wet. I said, no. So I went out there and I got it was like a bit of cardboard, and I hit it, bang, dry. It went straight from ice, a hard pair of trousers or shorts, straight to vapour, totally dry. Now we don't, that's called sublimation, by the way. That's God, and we have sublimation happening in the sky. And so it's not a common thing. Not too common, but it is common in our system. So it's intentional. God made it that way. So water, as you just said, is the only fluid that floats on itself. And I want to give an example. The Arctic Circle. Now, up in the North Pole is the Arctic Circle. All of it floats on itself. Down south, we've got the highest continent in the world. It's 2,500 metres high downstairs, down the South Pole. And it's got ice sheets that stick out and float. But up in the north, it's all floating ice. Now, just to give you an example. How big is it? How big is the floating ice at the North Pole? Well, I'll tell you in a minute, but it's bigger than Australia or United States. It's bigger than Australia or United States. So, imagine flying to Australia, Darwin, Perth, Tasmania, Sydney. It's not there. It's gone. In 6 months, it's all back again. Oh, go to New York. Go to New York. Oh, good on you. Alaska. Yeah, I'll go to Alaska then. And then it's not there. None of it's there. Why? Because the North Pole is bigger in area than any of those when it's fully formed, and it goes, all that amount goes away. Now, of course, some ice remains even in the North Pole. It's bigger than, it's around 14 million square kilometres. Australia's 7.7. So what we've got then is this unique things that God has done. And it's all regained in the very next 6 months. It's cyclical. And therefore on the press they get the amount of ice in the South Pole has gone down this year. Huh? Some of it's stayed up on the hills. 2,500 metres, the highest level. It's the biggest continent in the world. Anyway, natural water cycle. Well, we all know that there's evaporation, there's water droplets, droplet agglomeration, they stick together, clouds, precipitation, and the rain cools the air and then the sea and so on. Drive your car along on a sunny day, you're 25 degrees on your car thermometer, starts to rain, you look down again, it's 21 degrees. It's gone down 3 or 4 degrees because the rain cools the air first, then the land and the sea. So there's extensive mixing and extensive energy changes. So what we have is a natural water cycle, and we'll get this later on, but this is a key thing. The water cycle is self-compensating, self-regulating, self-correcting, and self-buffering. You can't beat that because God planned it that way. It's amazing. It's the only one that condenses, and when it does all these things. In other words, hit me again and I'll bounce back. Hit me from this side, I'll bounce back. That's what God's saying. And so water is been inbuilt, and so it's unique. So we have a natural water cycle with massive mixing and energy changes, and it's big time. So mixing in the atmosphere. Now, you know, you've seen a lot of this anyway. Lots of storms. Some have got lightning. We can't talk about the lightning and the causes and that yet. Sheet lightning and lightning. Caused by the way, the unique structure of water, because it floats in itself. The molecules, when it freezes, got a lower density than the liquid, and it floats in itself. And so unique structure gives it the ability to do that. We get dust storms too, by the way, so we shouldn't just say they're only storms. So what we have are typhoons, we have hurricanes, we have snow blizzards. You see those two houses there? The snow is blowing around in the wind and it forms a blizzard. And we have tornadoes. And of course we have the interaction when the free surface of the seas and the oceans and the lakes and the massive mixing and disturbances of the atmosphere interact. Now you've all seen this, of course, as little New Zealand. I call it New Zealand, NOO, ZOO, New Zealand. We see these high and low pressure systems. So what happens, the air comes in from all places and then goes up. Warm air rises, so it forms a lower pressure. It goes out and it goes in all directions. So it also sometimes spins, and then it comes down. Now some of it gets together and comes down, forms a high pressure system over here. So it's coming from also, it forms a high pressure system. So we have highs and lows. We won't go into the details of that, but just to say that it's well known. So we have massive air mixing, and it's all over the world. This is a diagram of the world and a kind of general patterns of air currents or air motion. And so all those countries, you can see a lot of it occurs over the sea, but it also occurs over the land as well. Then we have something which is really special. It's called jet streams. Now jet streams, there's two levels. There's the polar ones, the blue one is slightly lower level, and the red ones are slightly higher, 50k, 80k, 100k high. Now as the Earth rotates at an angle, it's rotating at an angle, it draws the air with it. And as it draws air with it you get spinning stuff and you get all sorts of pressure differences. And so what we've got are these jet streams. Now, if you're in a plane, you'll know about that. Cause excessive turbulence. Now these jet streams, if you look at that, there's the jet stream illustration here. Hot air coming up from the tropics, from California, hits England, and they say, climate change, climate change. No, it's not. It's just a jet stream bringing the warm air up. Last week, I was talking to my granddaughter in London. She said it was 15 degrees last week. It's 25 this week in London. That's what she told me. So it's then cold air up in Scandinavia and up in Greenland and other places. It comes down and cools cold air coming down, dumps snow and all sorts of stuff in New York and so on. I remember a couple of years ago, the whole of Texas got wiped out. That was coming down over Texas. Texas had no power. All the solar panels were covered, all the other thing was covered, zero. Had troubles. Okay, so God made it all. So we've got this massive mixing. Have I got some time or faster? That's all right. So just to highlight this, we can't cover all these today. We have massive mixing. Mixing's a big thing. It's turbulence or mixing. We have breezes, we have thermals. The hang glider guys go up in thermals. And so we have warm air rises. We have winds, we have clouds, we have storms, we have gales, hurricanes, cyclones, typhoons, tornadoes, jet streams, trade winds, and the roaring 40s. Those of you who live in Australia, New Zealand know about the roaring 40s that go around right down below Australia, really, 40 degrees south. And so there are movements. Now we also have mixing in the ocean. We have ocean currents. We also have conveyor belts. They're massive. And you know, from tides, look, zillions of tons of water are going to shift in and out of Auckland twice a day. Zillions. That's powerful, isn't it? Caused by the moon, by the way, because the moon hasn't got a circular orbit. It's got an elliptical orbit, and so it affects the Earth. Anyway, by the way, so we've got waves. Between liquid water and air, we've got waves. And we've also got undersea volcanoes. 80% of all active volcanoes are under the ocean. So we have the El Nino and the La Nina effects. Now we won't be able to go into that, but it's basically blobs of water coming across from near Mexico, across the equator towards Singapore. And that's just one of them. And it takes 7 years, it's cyclical, between 7 to 11 years of that order, maybe 7 to 9 years. So most mixing actions do not require direct solar radiation and all this rubbish you're getting on the press. Why? Because they occur at night. Huh? Okay, so let's just home in on radiation near the end. This is the most talked about subject today, and so I want just to highlight quantity or amount. Some of you may have amount in your mind. So water vapour, carbon dioxide and methane. We've already indicated there's about 1.5% water, 4% of the total water vapour, and that's how much. And there's only about 1.5% of those three greenhouse gases. Now, let's have a look at this, just to shock you into it. Water vapour is 36 times more of it, just water vapour, than carbon dioxide, 36 times more. Okay, so you've got to think that. The next thing, it's 7,800 times more than methane. So what's all this tripe about methane? Sorry. And look at this. It's 700 times greater than man-made carbon dioxide. Man-made. They don't talk about it. 700 times. It doesn't even get a look in. So water vapour quantity or amount is 35 times higher than all the other greenhouse gases combined. Now hold on, just for a tick, if you can just bear with us for a short time. This is a little technical, but it's not too technical, so I've made it kind of simple. Just 4 technical slides coming up because I know there are people worried about carbon dioxide and what's happening. So let's assume the total atmosphere is in that little box, okay? Or square, or rectangle to be precise. So what we've got is this solar radiation now is coming, all of it coming into this box. So we have the radiation range, and then we have the amount, 0 to 100%. Now let's look at carbon dioxide. What can carbon dioxide do with all the solar radiation coming to Earth? That's all it can do. That's all it can do. The pinky stuff, carbon dioxide doesn't do anything to do with it. Only the greeny stuff is carbon dioxide. Okay, so radiation and carbon dioxide is very small. In fact, it's minute. Now let's just take the same thing again. There's all the atmosphere is in the box. Solar radiation now, all going into that box or rectangle. And that's the amount there, and that's the range there. What does water vapour do? Bang. Now let's look together. Combine them. We'll see that solar radiation is going into the box, carbon dioxide, bang. Water vapour, sorry, got wiped out. Not only is it 700 times greater in concentration amount, it also overlaps. So the other one doesn't get a chance at all, very much at all. But they don't tell you that because this is published. It's not my stuff. I didn't do it. It's in the literature. It's all there. I'm just pulling it down. Not stealing it, but I'm pulling it down. So here we've got this unique situation where water covers and dominates over carbon dioxide. So in summary on radiation then, water vapour and over carbon dioxide is 36 times more radiation effective, and with methane it's 5,900 times more radiation effective, and with water vapour it's 700 times more radiation effective than man-made carbon dioxide. Can you see that? So we can do the same radiation from Earth. Now this is the only one that I'm not going through. Radiation comes back from Earth too. Everything's radiating. You're radiating. We're always radiating. Everything's radiating. Everybody's body and every body carpets are radiating, and so everything's radiating. Okay, that's what. Anyway, so radiation coming back from the Earth, as you can see the little yellow arrow there. They're all the gases, and you can see from there that carbon dioxide gets a look in. Methane doesn't get any look in. There's a little spot, but it's hard to pick up. And so nitrogen gets one spot, but carbon dioxide overcomes that one. And water dominates. Water dominates. The blue stuff, water dominates on radiation coming from Earth. Very important, and it's in the literature. It's been in the literature for 50 years. Okay, so what is major? Well, water, droplets, vapour in the water cycle. So I've already made to repeat this, but it's just a saying it's far more effective. So water vapour is number one in quantity, in radiation effectiveness, in competition with other greenhouse gases, and it's the only gas that changes phase to form a liquid and a solid. Therefore it's unique, and God meant it that way. So we must consider all the factors. We must consider the natural water cycle, mixing, extensive ocean mixing. We must consider all the gases that exist, that water goes to gas, liquid and solid. Consider the radiation from the ocean and the earth. We've got to consider radiation with greenhouse gases, but it's not just radiation. So we might, near the end here, team, if you can still stay with us, if it's not too technical, there's no climate emergency. I sent a thing to the government years ago when they're having both sides, every politician got it. Only one secretary responded, and they all voted against it. Not just me, because I was just one little voice in the wilderness. There's no climate emergency. Weather is always changing. It's going through a cyclical change, and it's not uniform. You can't just plan it. Now, temperatures each day are cyclical, and tomorrow may be a bit warmer than today and so on. You can do a little bit of planning. But the average world temperature has gone up 1.5 degrees in 100 years. This is their big mantra. If it gets to 2 degrees, we're going to die. We're going to die. I'm sorry, mate. You walk out into on the thing, well, you go up 15 degrees. From inside, you're, say, at certain degrees, say 20 degrees, you go outside, it's 30 degrees in the sun. Goes up that amount each day. 5 to 15 degrees is common each day. But the averages, they're hitting the averages. The average is only just to look from last year to this year. It has very little meaning, and they distort them. Now, I'll just very briefly, if a satellite comes over Auckland, this week it does 24 times over Auckland at night, and 24 times in the day. The average is a true average. But next week it does 36 times at night, and only whatever's left over at 12 in a day. It's going to be a distorted average. So you can't do mathematics you have distortion. Our place is distortion, running on satellites. Now the other key factor is the average level of water it's risen. 1.8 millimetres a year, 1.8. That's that much in 10 years. Because water expands. Water expands. Not water's going up, the levels are not going to rise. Good example is Fort Denison in Sydney Harbour. They've got the level there 100 years ago and it's still about the same level. It goes up and down, waves go up and down. So there's dishonesty again. Sea levels are not rising. So we've got the natural water cycle. Very key words here today. Self-compensating, self-regulating, self-correcting and self-buffering. So what? It's very important, yes, radiation is very important and we should keep an eye on it, but there's still far more. What are the real concerns? Well, it's not just radiation, and it's not just fossil fuels, which of course are coal and oil and natural gas. It's not just motor vehicles or the power generation systems or industry itself. It's not farming and methane and animals. And it's not those things, but it's incomplete combustion. And it's also traces of compounds like sulfur and phosphorus and others. They're in coal and so on that form atmospheric pollution. Now, the worst, and I hope no one's got one of these more modern, but I just want to say that the old diesels used to black fumes. The new diesels are very good, but they should not be on the road because the particles of incomplete combustion are so small that once they get on your lungs can't get rid of them. So very dangerous. One of the most dangerous engineering feats in the last 20 years has been the improvement of the diesel engine. They've caused a lot of problems. And you won't sell it. A tyre lasts 4 years. 4 tyres wear out. A zillion cars. Zillions of tons of fine coal rubber are in the air. Very small. Can't see it. So, don't forget. All those. And there are some others which you haven't had a chance to talk about, but just in closing say, the tectonic plates are moving. And you've seen these earthquakes and volcanoes are going up around the world. in Europe and just up in above us, further north. The plates are folding down. The inner core is molten, and the inner core is made out of predominantly iron, but there are other things, and that's magnetic. If we didn't have a magnet, we'd die. Moon hasn't got a magnetic core. If you go up there in the moon and live there, you'll die, because the radiation from the sun, we haven't talked about it, coming from the sun is particles as well, and the magnetic field pushes it around the Earth. So a lot of it never reaches us. But there's two powerful things going through your body and my body every second. They're so powerful. If you had 10-story building, they'll still go through your body. That's how they're powerful there. It's solar wind, it's called. So we have fissures, cracks, we have volcanoes, we have the Earth's magnetic field, it's so vital, we'd die without it. The sun is bursting out in flames all the time, so we have solar flares. We haven't talked about that yet. We've got solar wind. We just mentioned the particles from the sun, helium nuclei and electrons and other particles from the sun. We haven't talked about the cyclical nature of the moon, the cycles, sunspots. Every 11 years, the sun's going up, about 11 years. You see these black spots in the sun, and they're caused by magnetic changes in the sun. That black means it's not emitting, and it affects the Earth. And then we've got the Earth's moon orbit around us and the Earth's tilt. All these are factors which we haven't chanced. And overall, heat travels from hot to cold. So there's a general shift or movement of energy from the equator to the poles. So it's going up and down. But as it goes around, it's being twisted because it's going with the air. And as it's twisted, it's being thrown up. And as it's going up, so it's all sorts of mixing actions. So it's a long way for the heat to travel to the equator. Now, all they're doing today is talking about the fossil fuels. That's what their big theme is today. They're worried about radiation and fossil fuels. Sure, we can improve the combustion reaction. Sure, we can get rid of the dust and the fines with electrostatic precipitators and water out of power plants. Sure, we can do better. But to go and say that it's a killer is bad news. And also to say the trace of a trace of a trace of a few animals. So what they're doing in New Zealand? Destroying New Zealand. They're building forests, taking away the farms which have productive meat for the future. And we're going to go bankrupt. New Zealand's becoming a warehouse. Becoming a warehouse. We've got very few plants for making stuff for the rest of the world. So we won't be able to compete. Okay. Oh yes. Water vapour. Only gas that changes phase. And that's the bigger picture. Because Romans 1 tells us this: for since the creation of the world, his eternal and divine nature have been clearly understood by what he has made. You see that? The screaming voice of nature is telling people, you are without excuse. Turn to God. Look at Romans, that first section in Romans. It's very important. For the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness of men who suppress the truth. They hold down the truth. Because that which may be known of God is clearly seen, being perceived in the things that are made, even his everlasting power and divinity. So God gave them up. It's the danger. The fear of God is a big thing. And so that's the Lord's plan for mankind. And that's the heart of weather change. I pray that God will bless your heart as He's blessed mine in all this. Thank you so much.